Hello, my darling. Hello, my ragtime gal. It's Russ and Steve. You are listening to Joygasm, a video game and movie podcast. And Resident Evil is alive and well in episode 210 today, January 28th, 2021. We have a number of items on the to-chat list, which are actually pretty interesting. Gaming news includes Marvel's Avengers and The Division 2 getting upgraded, Keanu Reeves' Cyberpunk 2077 sex mod removed, and Capcom sees record sales. Our topic of the day is the Resident Evil Maiden Village reactions, which you can fast forward to if you look at the timestamps located in the detailed section of your podcast provider below. Steve,
how you doing?
I am doing just dandy. How are you?
I'm doing just dandified.
Well, that's good. Oh, that's real good, Steve. I have been having a good time thinking about our first foray into video.
Next gendum. Actually, over here, yes. And video.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, so we have done a bit of a test with some of the video gear that we've got, and we thought it'd be actually a great opportunity to be able to record Steve. I'm there too as his co-pilot, but the Resident Evil Maiden Village demo became available on the PS5. And so I invited Steve to come over since he is our Resident Evil expert. He's our Resident Evil veteran. And we decided to do a live stream. And I also recorded it with one of our video cameras that we have here. And so it was a lot of fun to be able to put that together. And we did run into a couple of, like little
hiccups.
Yeah, technical hiccups. One of which I wanted to share with all of you. I was not aware of this, but apparently the PS5 has an internal mic in the console itself. And if you decide to live stream that on YouTube or Twitch, whatever, that by default, this option is set to on. So if you don't have some sort of dedicated mic, it will just default to this internal mic. And that ended up messing things up a little bit in the sense that the audio track that I got from the YouTube video that was created from our live stream actually had our voices mixed in. And so it was weird because then when I combined that with the audio track from the video camera, then it was like this weird duality double voice thing. So anytime like Steve would scream like a little girl, then you'd hear it as if they were twins.
I don't think I screamed like a little girl. I think I screamed more like Homer Simpson.
Oh, there you go. You were probably correct. You're much more accurate in that assumption. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. We definitely encourage you to check it out. We have it posted on Facebook and a bunch of other places too, YouTube, that sort of thing. So it is fun to check out. But it was fun to have you back, and we'll talk a bit more of that as we get to our topic of the day. But what have you been watching, Steve? What have you been playing this week?
Russ, it's been more of the same. We are still making our way. We're getting close to the end of season dose with The Sopranos. You know what movie is coming out this Friday, though, Russ?
This Friday?
This Friday.
In theaters or on HBO Max or?
Both.
Ooh, I'm not sure.
The Little Things with Denzel Washington.
Not the big things?
Not the big things, not the mediocre things.
Not the fat things?
Definitely not. Looking forward to that one, though. Have you seen the trailer for that?
I don't...
yeah, I'll take that as a no.
Actually, I think I saw like half of it.
Huh.
I believe I did.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I saw more of an elderly Denzel Washington for some sort of movie, and I didn't really it was weird because I saw the second half, so I didn't know what the heck I was watching.
We were actually going to suspend our HBO Max account because we're like, nothing's coming out that's really good. I mean, I own The Sopranos, so I don't need to pay extra for it every month. And then the account was going to stop on the 25th. And so, or excuse me, not stop. It was going to renew on the 25th. And so I had to stop it on the 25th. And so the 25th came and I hit cancel and it went, great, your subscription will cancel on February 25th. What? Stupid.
But wait, I thought that was free for you since you were an AT&T subscriber.
I couldn't find anything that has anything to do with it being free since I have AT&T.
I will get back to you on that, Steve.
Okay.
Because it'd be a shame if like you actually were to cancel it when in fact you get to waive that fee, whatever that fee is.
I don't know. My credit card was charged. I don't know how they do it. It didn't ask me like, hey, are you an AT&T person or do you have a promo code or anything? And I couldn't find anything on the internet. So I didn't when I set it up, it didn't ask me for any kind of like promo code or are you an AT&T internet? I think yeah, I don't know. I think you had to have AT&T cable along with AT&T wireless.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we don't have cable. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Well, apparently you're going to suspend.
Right. Pretty much. So
Cheapo.
anyhow, no. So I've been playing just more Final Fantasy.
Oh, well, see, that's a good thing.
And I am at that part. I've actually bought a couple of swords. One of them actually is not actually a sword. It's a bat. With nails in it.
guys with swords.
Isn't that from Aladdin?
It is indeed.
Yeah.
Your Disney intuition serves you well.
Oh, speaking of which, Russ.
Yes.
I rewatched.
And you watched again?
Just once at my house, which would make it twice since I've seen it. Once here, once there.
3 times later.
The Mandalorian.
Oh.
Season 1, episode 1.
Good for you, Steve.
And I know you know that I've already seen it, but I thought that might be my me time show late at night. I know my wife's not going to be interested in. I mean, she might be interested in seeing it. But
I was going to say I wouldn't put it past her, Steve.
yeah,
She may actually really like it, but I for one am tickled to hear that you are in fact getting your start into the world that is the Mandalorian. And it's like I mentioned to you before.
I have spoken.
Exactly. The first 2 or 3 episodes of season 1, you know, they're establishing what's going on.
Sure, Russ.
Maybe it's a tad teensy weensy bit on the slow side.
I can handle that.
It grows on you though.
Like a wart.
It's the finest wart you ever did see.
Like a bunion.
It is so good. That show, like by the time you get fully caught up, I'm going to be curious to hear your thoughts, just because to me, it's what episodes 7, 8, and 9 should have been like in terms of like the storytelling, the pacing, the quality, the characters, the realized world. I mean, there is a lot in that show, and you can tell like certain episodes feel more like for TV-ish as opposed to like a theatrical film. Having said that though, because it is in fact, it's like an episodic TV show, the thing could easily be a movie if you look at it for the most part. So what are your initial impressions based off the episodes? You said you saw the first 3 episodes?
No, I just saw the first episode by itself.
Oh.
So I'm going to be watching more, but I've just watched season 1, episode 1.
Oh.
And, it's definitely cool. This is not Boba Fett.
Correct. So that's why the show is called The Mandalorian, because there is essentially the race or the species of alien that is known as the Mandalorians. And that's why you're being introduced. And I can't remember. You may have only seen, well, as you watch the show, Steve, people refer to him as Mando.
Mando.
But anyway, yeah, he is not Boba Fett. But
is he a clone?
I'll
find out.
I won't say anything.
He's a man of the DeLorean.
It's really cool because the show actually explores what the culture is of the Mandalorian race, which is really cool. Like it takes what kind of mystique that Boba Fett had, because Boba Fett really wasn't on screen that much in
Not that
Empire
much,
Strikes
Russ.
Back
No.
or Return of the Jedi. I mean, it was
No.
very few and far between.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it created that allure and that mystique regarding the character. This does a deep dive. Like you're going to come out and you're going to be like, okay, this is actually pretty cool.
I've learned a few things.
Yeah.
Do you think his ship looks kind of like the ship in the Outer Worlds?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I too had that distinction of the kind of a similarity between the
Yeah.
two. They don't look like carbon copy,
no,
but
right.
but yeah, definitely like there is kind of a like I do think the Outer World ship is bigger. It's
Right.
it's a larger ship, but
Yeah.
I loved the first episode because it showed how much of a badass the Mandalorian was. I mean, he doesn't deal with BS. He is no one to be trifled with. And there's a whole lot more of that. Like in the seasons that you're going to go through there. I mean, he's got such skill.
Are we going to find out who's actually the Star Wars version of Dog, the bounty hunter, Russ? He's going to take off his helmet and have a big mullet and a beard.
No,
Dyed beard, very dark.
That would be Spaceballs, Steve. Be completely different. That's Mel Brooks, not George Lucas.
I'm just saying, Dog the bounty hunter.
No,
Mandalorian could happen.
no, no.
Anyhow, so yeah, I'm later on. I'm like I was saying, I was playing Final Fantasy. I'm stuck in the arena, and I knew this part was going to happen. And I'm like,
F this. I'm gonna go watch the Mandalorian.
in the patootie. And so yeah, I'm at the last bit. That's the boss fight of this. Like every person you face is a total pushover, and then there's like this hell house at the end, and the thing's like impossible. Like,
It's
great.
like Resident Evil just all tidied up into this house that doesn't die.
So anyway, I have a few tricks up my sleeve. I'm gonna try. I forgot how.
It took me a few tries too. Don't feel like you're the only one because, yeah, the difficulty all of a sudden out of nowhere gets ratcheted up. You're like, what the heck?
Yeah. Anyhow, that is basically what's been going on with me. What about you?
Excellente. Well, it should come as no surprise to you, Steve, because I have been talking about it endlessly, but I have been dumping much more time into Cyberpunk. What's interesting is that I've been going back and forth between the PC version and the Xbox version. The PC version, I still have my Street Kid character that I beat the game for the first time with, and I've been going around trying to tidy up all the loose ends. And I mentioned this, I think, last week, but there is a part of the map itself. Like I didn't really understand how to filter things out in the map for the longest time. And then I realized, like there are all kinds of crimes in progress. Yeah, I really did that. Where like I couldn't believe it. And I didn't know at the time that when I decided to go into the in-game portion that, you know, at that point, I had done all the side quests, I'd done all the gigs, I'd done all the main quest stuff. So I thought, okay, I'm good to go. I'll just, because I want to be a completionist. Well, all of these crimes in progress type stuff was there. And I'm telling you, I'm still not done tidying all that up. Like I keep going around the world and then there's still more stuff. And it's not just like the crimes in progress, but there are also like a lot of these various like golden question marks, like if you mouse over it or if you kind of hover over it,
sure,
it'll say like, oh, who knows what you might find here. And I'm like, dude, I like that wasn't listed in the list, so I had no idea. So it's actually been this kind of newly discovered joy that I've had with the game. So definitely nice indeed, Steve. Good. Enjoying that for sure. I also watched with my daughter Wreck-It Ralph 1 and 2. Did you? I know you saw the first one, right?
I saw the second one. The second one had to do with like the internet and spam and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. It had been a while since I had seen it, and I couldn't remember if you had seen both of them or not. But that was her first foray and introduction. She is hooked. She loves Wreck-It Ralph, and she loves Wreck-It Ralph 2 even more than 1, which is just nuts. So that whole thing is really cool. She definitely loves seeing different types of video game characters that she recognized from playing just the regular video games. So of course, Sonic is one that she instantly pointed out. But she loves Ralph. She loves Penelope, I think is the character's name, who's the glitch from Candy Rush. So she's been enjoying that a lot. I actually forgot how much I enjoyed it. Those are some fun movies for sure. I think I prefer the first one over the second one just because the first one is predominantly about video games. The second one is an interesting approach to them going into the internet and that sort of thing, but it does kind of get away from gaming, which I feel like that's kind of the kernel of the Wreck-It Ralph world. And so if they end up doing a third one, it would be nice if they were to figure out another story to tell from the gaming side of things. Other than that, though, I did watch the latest episode of WandaVision. Did you watch episode 3, Steve?
I have not watched that. I saw that it was out. I have not watched it yet.
Okay, so episode 3, I won't give any spoilers away for you, but I will tell you that the episode takes place in a different time period than the first 2 episodes. And as a result, the presentation of how the sitcoms were during that time period are represented in this episode, which again is distinctly different from episodes 1 and 2, which were much more of the black and white, Leave It to Beaver, I Love Lucy type things. So more, one other thing I will tell you too, since you haven't seen it yet, is that there are more instances of this weird kind of like duality that's going on. Like on the one hand, they're in this sitcom kind of thing, but then the people who are in it have these moments of like where something's not stirring the Kool-Aid quite right or whatever.
Yeah.
I had kind of an epiphany of sorts. I realized that I think the Truman Show is somehow like, you know, the idea behind the Truman Show with Jim Carrey. Remember that old movie?
Yes.
I have a feeling that movie kind of sort of plays into like what they're dealing with. I still am trying to like put all the pieces together, but for some reason that movie came to mind where like, if you recall, Jim Carrey's character, he's like, he doesn't realize that his whole life is like being broadcasted and people are watching him, rooting for him and all this other stuff. And then he does find out that, hey, his whole life has been this fake sitcom TV show kind of thing. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be exactly like that when it comes to WandaVision, but I think it might be in that same vein. Something along those lines, Steve.
I hope it doesn't get all the way to the end and then you figure out that, yeah, like let's say that does happen and then it's the end of the season and it's like, okay, you got to wait till next season for it to really get good, you know, Game of Thrones style or something.
Yeah.
You know, it's got to start to pick up pretty soon. I mean, why do we have 2 superheroes now in the 3rd episode who aren't doing superhero stuff?
Yeah, and it's interesting. There are some big developments though that occur in episode 3, and episode 4 is, I think, going to drop tomorrow. So I'm curious to see what the next kind of like sitcom type of environment they are going to replicate next. So other than that, the only other thing that comes to mind that we were doing this week is that Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Central Time, we did our Joygasm gaming night. And we did Overwatch where, man, we did really horrible that night. Like,
it was like 50-50.
I don't think so. I think it was more like 30-70. Like we won 30% of the time and we lost like 70% of the time. I remember even commenting to you, I'm like, have we won a game yet? Like we keep losing.
Which we had one
out of like how many?
At that moment, we only had one. Yes.
We had lost like 5 and 1-1. Great. That's fantastic. Still a fun game though. And the maps have been a lot of fun for us to play recently just because there have been a number of maps that we haven't checked out. Also, I wanted to get your opinion on the team deathmatch.
Sure. What's that, Russ?
Well, if you stop interrupting me, you would hear me.
What's going on with it, Russ?
Oh, well, what did I just ask you, Steve?
I don't know, Russ.
Shut up, Steve. I wanted to know your opinion on the team deathmatch mode because we really don't play team deathmatch in Overwatch. We tend to either do capture the flag or we do the whole like, push the payload. But the team deathmatch thing is something that is kind of relatively a rarity in our case. So, but did you enjoy yourself?
Yeah, I didn't really care for the team deathmatch. I just don't. It's just not my bag of tea, Russ.
Well, which is interesting because, like, when you played Halo, you love team deathmatch.
Sure, yeah. Because there's a lot more people on the map, and the map is bigger, and to me, it's cooler. I just didn't really. In both of those aspects, the maps were smaller, and the teams are smaller. I mean, maybe if it was 6-on-6, it would be cool with no payload and no king of the hill, get the zone kind of thing. I just didn't care for it.
Well, color me surprised, Steve. I thought for sure you were enjoying yourself. I actually thought it was a nice change up from what we were doing, because I think for me, I get used to the idea that Overwatch is like, oh, it's the whole payload thing, or it's the territory thing, the kind of more of the main bread and butter of the title. And so when we went to that, I was like, oh, wow, like this, I had to kind of change up my mindset and my strategy because I was so conditioned to like do the other stuff that it was a nice change up for me to be able to go into that. I also started to play more as Echo. And if you recall, as we were playing the game, I even made a comment about like, wow, I should really get back into checking Echo out. And I'm glad I did. Echo's are actually a really dynamic character. It's pretty interesting how she's designed. And I think she's well balanced, honestly. I think there are certain things about her that really can dazzle you, but at the same time, she's not, I don't feel like she's overpowered. I feel like there's a nice balance in there where like I would be able to get certain kills that were very fair, but at the same time, if I overextended myself, then I would get killed myself. And so I was digging it. I'm going to have to play around with it a bit more, but she is clearly like Diva's antidote. It's crazy. Like certain characters, she can really rally against hard. And then there are other characters that like she is absolutely weak against and just gets her digital booty handed to her.
Digital tush.
Segueing into some good old-fashioned gaming news. Marvel's Avengers Hawkeye content, PS5 and Xbox Series X versions to be shown next month. So Marvel's Avengers Next War Table will take place on February 16th of 2021. It will be showcasing both the Hawkeye character and the delayed PS5 and Xbox Series X versions. It was announced by Marvel's Avengers on Twitter. Hawkeye and his Operation Hawkeye Future Imperfect will be the next big free DLC content to be released following the arrival of Kate Bishop and her new operation taking aim. Of course, the acronym AIM makes sense in the Marvel lore. Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics had planned on having the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S version ready earlier, but they were delayed, quote, to ensure that we give our team the time to deliver a next-gen experience, showcasing all that this game is meant to be, end quote. Now, what's interesting, Steve, is that you and I have not beaten that game. I know that you're farther along in the title than I am, and I feel like this is kind of a blessing in disguise for us just because, I'll speak for myself, like I got somewhat into the game, but just enough to get a taste for it. And I feel like now that they're actually going to be confirming a proper upgrade for the next gen systems, that it is going to be fun to be able to check it out, because it won't just be limited to like an increased frame rate from 30 frames per second to 60 frames per second. But I'm very curious to see what the graphics fidelity is going to be with this. Not to mention, I've heard they've been able to add more content, fix some of the little bugs. The game really wasn't buggy when it came out. It was just, I think, from a gameplay perspective, it kind of got a little tedious after a while.
It got way tedious after a while. I'm thinking, I mean, I don't want to play it until I have my PS5, because as it stands right, I mean, nothing's really going to change except for the way it looks. honestly.
Yeah.
And the way that it's playing right now, it's very tedious. I don't really see myself playing through it again, like a second time. So I figured where I am right now, if I could play it again, well, continue off where I am right now, not play it again, but continue off where I am, but in the next gen graphics and HDR and whatever else they have to offer, I think that's how I'll complete it.
Well, and your birthday is coming up.
You tell me that like every week, Russ. I am glad you are looking forward to it.
I am looking forward to it indeed. I'm excited to see my brother from the same mother turn another year older, and I can't think of a better time for you to get a brand spanking new PS5 or an Xbox Series X, Steve, for that matter, than at that time period itself. But yeah, and I will say this too. Marvel's Avengers graphics were already impressive. Like, I remember playing through the levels and talking to you about it, saying, man, like this game is a looker. It looks really good. It's just, I think the main issue that we both have is that the gameplay needs to kind of get revisited a bit because, like we were saying, it tends to get tedious pretty quick. So we'll see what happens. Now, another title is also getting a next-gen upgrade, and that is The Division 2 from Ubisoft. Apparently, this particular upgrade is going to happen next week, and it will receive an update bringing 4K resolution and 60 frames per second support for next-gen consoles. So while there won't be a state of the game this week, there is a title update coming to The Division 2 on February 2nd, which will, of course, bring the aforementioned updates and upgrades to next-gen consoles, as well as even the Xbox Series S. So don't feel like you're left out in the cold if you have one of those systems. And again, this is a blessing in disguise because I bought The Division 1 and 2, but I never got around to playing them. So being able to actually play The Division 2 with these upgrades, it's like a bonus. It's like, okay, cool. What were you going to say, Steve?
Must be nice just to go out and buy games and never play them, Russ. Just throw them on the shelf. I don't have any money. I don't know why, huh? You buy all these games, let me play them.
I'm so broke, but so happy at the same time. Keanu Reeves Cyberpunk 2077 sex mod removed. CD Projekt Red clarifies stance on modding models of real people. A Cyberpunk 2077 mod that allowed players to swap models and have sex, lots of hot sex, with characters based on real-world likenesses such as Keanu Reeves has been removed. The mod let players swap characters into explicit sex scenes who usually shouldn't be there, such as Keanu Reeves as Johnny Silverhand, and my personal favorite, the game's antagonist, Adam Smasher. This is so weird. In a statement issued to Eurogamer, CD Projekt Red said that they broadly permit modders to, quote, tweak the game at will and have fun, end quote, when it comes to the characters the studio has created for the game. But for the characters based on real people, the studio is taking a different stance. Quote, when it comes to models of real people whom we've asked to participate in the game, we kindly ask you to refrain from using them in any situation that might be found offensive if you don't have their explicit permission, end quote. So I looked this up on Reddit, and it's true. Like it's for the PC version only, but modders have been busy doing different things, and actually there have been quite a few mods that have come out that actually make the game even better than it is. But this one in particular, it's like, guys, you're getting a little carried away here.
They've been busy getting busy.
Yeah, pretty much. So I respect this decision, as it's like, guys, come on. If you can't be like putting actual real people in the world who are in the game into these situations. It's just it's not kosher. It's not a good thing to do. Finally, Capcom has some good news. It sees records Q3 profits thanks to Monster Hunter and Resident Evil. A press release from the company states that net sales for Capcom are up 22.6%, and operating income is up 32.2% year over year. Net sales amounted to a healthy 64,867 million yen, putting the earnings per share of this company at 164.15 yen, up from the 122.39 yen in 2019. This covers the period of April to December of 2020. During the third quarter, Capcom experienced growing sales of Resident Evil 3, which released at the very start of the financial year in April of 2020, and now hit 3.6 million sales. Meanwhile, 2019's Monster Hunter World Iceborne continues to sell well in 2020 and now has topped a cumulative 7.2 million units sold. So definitely a big congrats to Capcom on their financial success. And that is your gaming news, Steve. It's pretty and it's deadly. It's time for the topic of the day. Topic of the day is the Resident Evil Maiden Village demo impressions. This was a demo that got dropped last week, and I must say, why are you looking around all?
I heard something out there.
Well, it's probably just your PTSD from playing the Resident Evil Village demo there, Steve. But anyway, it dropped with the idea of being able to give everybody a little tasty taste of what is to be expected when the game releases, which is surprising because I actually thought this game was going to be released in February. And actually, I think it's scheduled for May 7th. That is the release date. So it's kind of a ways out.
Probably not the game people wanted to buy on Valentine's Day, Russ.
Well, the reason I say February is that typically around the January, February timeframe, I believe is when they launched the Resident Evil 2 remake and the Resident Evil 3 remake. It's in that both have been released in that first quarter. So I was anticipating, well, let's make it kind of an ongoing tradition of being first quarter, and it's not. It looks like it's getting punted into the second quarter. So this was a lot of fun for me personally because it brought me back to the good old days of when we lived at mom and dad's place, and
Mom and Dad,
you were the Resident Evil player of the two of us. And so every time you got a new sequel, it was just fantastic for me to grab a drink and a snack and sit down and watch as you play it.
blowing up zombies, little polygonal blood spurting everywhere.
Absolutely.
That's right.
It was definitely really, really fun, really, really memorable. So I guess, what did you think of the demo overall, Steve?
Well, Russ, I think I need to mention, I should need to point out the pink elephant in the middle of the room.
Point it out, Steve. Is it an undead elephant?
I'm trying to tell you.
Is it an undead elephant, Steve?
No, it's not.
Can it be an undead elephant?
That'd be pretty scary. Sometimes these games do this where, and Resident Evil does it a lot, where they say very early on, like in the beginning, before the game starts, they say, okay, with the whole pattern thing where you adjust the light and it says, oh yeah, make it darker until you can barely see the pattern and whatnot.
Oh,
that's
sure.
a bunch of malarkey.
Bunch of malarkey,
That's a bunch of malarkey. And I'll tell you why. Because when I played the Resident Evil 2 remake here, and we made it very dark, I kept on saying, like, dude, I can't see what I'm trying to be looking at here. And then you're like, oh, I'll just turn the brightness up on the TV. And then so we're always trying to compensate. And then when I went home to my place, I made the overall settings of the game brighter, and I wasn't straining my eyes whatsoever.
Are you telling me that you replayed the demo at your house, Steve?
No, Russ.
Oh.
But when I play the demo here, it asks for the same thing. And I found myself straining yet again after we're reading the instructions of, do this, lower the light till you can barely see the pattern, and that's how you're supposed to play the game. And now I'm straining, like, I guess I'd be really scared if something like ran up right now because I can barely see what's in front of me.
Well, it could be that is the intention of the developers team.
But
maybe that's how they want to present their game to us.
That's lowering the fun value because I feel like I want to strain when I'm playing the game. I want to have fun.
Oh, Steve. You did have fun. You had a very good time.
I did have fun. I would have more fun if I was straining less.
Oh, you poor, unfortunate soul.
Right.
Continue, Steve.
Anyhow, despite that fact, I mean, this was my first next gen playing, game that I've besides the little PS5 demo.
I was gonna say, technically speaking, you did play a game on next gen.
That doesn't really count.
Yeah, it does. Built for the PS5.
That was just like a test to kind of break you into how the controller can work. Well, that wasn't really a game, bro. This is
like the guy who played like one level.
So it's not okay. Whatever.
I played the game. I beat it.
Great. That's awesome. But did you pay $70 to get the game, or did it come with the console to introduce you how to use the controller?
It came with the console.
Right.
It served as a means to be able to demonstrate things the controller is capable of.
Right.
But that wasn't the only purpose. It was actually a really well thought out little mini game there, Steve.
That's nice. Anyhow, this was my first official playthrough of a next gen experience. And I loved it.
Oh, there it is, ladies and gentlemen.
I had a great, fantabulous time with it. I was blown away. This looked like how you always wanted the Resident Evil game to look from Resident Evil 1, like the OG. When you're walking around all this pre-rendered, backgrounds and whatnot. Of course, you look crappy because you were like 32-bit and polygon or whatever.
Well, wait, I gotta pause you though.
What?
At the time,
I know. At the time,
we were blown away.
I know. At the time, right?
I mean, it was one of those things where, you said what you're saying right now is what you were saying back in the day,
right? But there was still a contrast between the background of the mansion of Resident Evil and your little polygonal self.
Right.
And so I remember us saying okay, at some point the game's going to look this good in the future. Like they would have these little cut scenes of the hunter who was running up the ladder and you're like, oh crap, some monster's moving really quickly and about to, tear my head off sort of thing. And we remember us talking saying, what if the game actually looked like this?
Yeah, it went from having static rendered backgrounds into real-time 3D environments.
Exactly. And so now we look at it and you're in this kind of mansion and it looks, it doesn't look like it looked back then. It looks way better. And I was pretty awestruck.
Well, good. And I could tell too, even from the video recording that we did of the live stream, it was a lot of fun to document your reaction to that. And mine too. I was saying things about it too, wow, that's really pretty. In a very survival horror kind of way.
Yeah. Although I will say, the game has to be different than this. There was no knife, there was no gun, there was no weapon to defend yourself.
Well, that all of that will be in there.
So the way the demo was, my gut reaction after I left was how was that? How could I describe it to somebody? And I thought, if Resident Evil and the old game of Myst on PC were to have a baby, this would be it.
An unholy baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think they were actually wise to not include any weapons in the demo. Just because you feel that much more vulnerable as you're playing through it. You're playing through a brand new Resident Evil title. You don't know what to expect. You have no means of defending yourself. I don't even think that they had activated the block ability. Apparently, I think there's some sort of new way of maneuvering and blocking different zombies and that sort of thing. But anyway,
I hope zombies aren't even in it. I hope zombies are a very small part.
Well, and I think you are going to be happy about that, because I think in this iteration there may be like some zombie action going on, but it at least the way they're marketing it, it looks much more in this vein of like witches and vampires and werewolves, like a lot more of the other supernatural characters, which I think is great.
I'll take it.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, Resident Evil doesn't have to always be zombies.
Right.
I think that this is actually a really nice departure from what we're used to.
Yeah, if Resident Evil wants to continue its identity, it cannot stick with zombies or else it's gonna die. So departing from that and doing vampires and or werewolves or both or whatnot, that is a welcome relief.
The graphics itself. Let's talk about the graphics. We've made little side comments here and there, but I think what is especially impressive about a title like this is you can tell where the next gen is going. And I think that that's a very exciting thing, because up until this point, we haven't really played games that are built from the ground up to be the next gen experience. We've seen a lot of backwards compatibility with previous titles that already exist and everything else. And so it was really nice. And I know we commented several times as we were playing, the fidelity on the walls. I know, like with like the brick as well as the wood on the stairs and the details, the marble floors, the gorgeous chandelier. What I find actually pretty fascinating about this game is at least half of that demo, you're in a beautiful mansion. Like it is a beautiful space, but at the same time, it creeps me out. And I'm trying to like figure out why that is, because you walk around and you're just like, my goodness, this is like a pretty swanky pad. But at the same time, it's that whole like, oh, did you hear something? I think I heard something. Oh, what's behind there? Okay,
yeah.
Time, and it's the funniest thing how you could go from a dank, dark dungeon, which has all the different fixings of what would creep somebody out. But then by that point, I think you're so amped up from being in the dungeon that when you get into this nice space, you're kind of like, this is freaking me out too.
Speaking of the sound, you could definitely tell took a notch up. I mean, when the last Resident Evil, we played, and I haven't played them all through 3, but it's the same engine, it's the same sound, like with the heavy footsteps and whatnot. This is definitely clearer. The next level, the sound, the footsteps, if they're on a hard surface like tile, they have a little echo to them. If it's like a high heel, and a click click sort of thing, or it's a thump with the carpet, you can definitely tell how heavy that footstep was. There was some of that with the last game, but this was the next level up, and it definitely added some action, depth when you're wandering around in that little dungeon, and some of the bodies start falling around.
You yelled at one point, like you had some sort of body sack fall from the ceiling, and you're like, oh crap, or whatever it was you said.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, you're vulnerable. You don't have a weapon, and then you don't know if something's in there hiding. And I'm like, I don't want to die yet. This thing is live. I gotta live. And so, yeah, when I start hearing footsteps and I can't see what's really going on, it was a bit startling.
What was your favorite part of the demo itself?
I think my favorite part was when one of the antagonist women says, I'm watching you. And I thought that was so clear. It was almost like in my head clear. And then
creepy.
As I went downstairs and she came through that door and she zoomed right up to me.
Yeah, that was intense, wasn't it?
That was nuts. I mean, it was, I would figure that would be a cutscene where, you would expect to see the letterboxing on the top and the bottom of the screen, because they have to kind of compress everything to make it look a little bit better. But no, that all happened in game, and I was like, wow, okay, is she going to talk to me? Is she going to bite me? What is she going to do? I don't know. I can't defend myself. So what's going to happen?
Well, and I could tell that you were a little in shock because when you were playing the game, you really weren't taking evasive action. You were kind of like in horrific awe of what was going on, and she ended up biting you that first time, and I remember kind of egging like, Steve, you gotta go, move. You were kind of petrified there for a moment.
Well, I couldn't really, there's no real run button. There's a move.
Yeah.
But there's no run. And
like you even stood there and looked at her after she bit you and she was wiping her mouth. I'm like, Steve, go.
Jeez.
Then she took another chomp out of the back of you when you were making your way. But yeah, no, I agree. I think that, again, it's a great example of how we've been conditioned when we're playing Resident Evil games to expect zombies. And she is clearly not a zombie. She's something else entirely. And it really does change up kind of the gameplay makeup of what you expect in a Resident Evil title. And so she is much more agile. Her ability to appear out of, like, I don't know if it's like mist or insects or something. I mean, it's something like some sort of plague
or bats or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Something. Yeah, it was really cool looking, but definitely changes things up. And so that was your favorite part, is when she appeared?
Yes, that was my favorite part. One thing I also noticed, and this was making me think of Ghost of Tsushima, was the breeze that was coming through the window in that last little room on the ground floor. And when you think of breeze or wind in a game, you can tell where the lines are drawn. And it's fine. It works. It's whatever. It's gotten better over the years. But this looked like actual weather effects coming through the window. It looked cold. It looked like wind. It looked like the little, bits of snow maybe or crystallized ice particles had some weight to them and they would float to the bottom. Like it looked very, very good.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of what my favorite part was of the entire thing. It's kind of a change. Well, not that's the wrong word. It's a toss up between the scene where you walk in and you see that hand sticking out of the wine barrel. And you missed it, but I saw it. The hand actually moved. Like, I couldn't tell if it was like, if the person inside the wine barrel was still alive, or maybe it was just like one of those like, random body twitches when a body's already dead and just kind of does this. But like the animation was really good. Like it was kind of a bummer that you didn't see it, because like it's sitting there and you walk in and it totally does this.
Huh.
And it looked really, really fluid. So there was that, because I thought, man, like I would never have it expected. Like I expected chains and the dungeon and a lot of that stuff. It's like, okay, yeah, that's what I was anticipating. I did not anticipate to see that kind of visual, and I was like, wow, okay, that's creepy in its own way, and it was such a small part. But then the other one that really stood out to me was the ending of the demo. And we were expecting, obviously, something big to kind of act as like the climax of the demo. But the way that was done, I thought was awesome. Like when, as far as demos are concerned, and in terms of the storytelling and the presentation, all that, like, I mean, even when it did happen, both you and I were very audible. We were just like, whoa, yeah. like it was definitely cinematic, a memorable moment there. And the pacing of it was just really well done. And it left you, I don't know about you specifically, but like just generally you wanting more. Like it said, thank you for playing the visual showcase, yada yada. And I was like, oh man, that was really good. And now I can't wait to check it out. And see, for me, like I've always said, I'm a late bloomer to the Resident Evil series, and especially when it comes to these remakes, it's fun because now I get to actually participate in some of them. I still have not beaten Resident Evil 2 Remake. I haven't even begun to play Resident Evil 3 Remake, so I'm like horribly behind in these titles. One of the things that comes to mind, though, is I wonder if Capcom has two different teams that are creating these Resident Evil games, because you have Resident Evil 2 Remake, you have Resident Evil 3 Remake, and I think they've actually greenlit a remake for Resident Evil 4.
I think they have, yeah.
But what's interesting is that they also had Resident Evil Biohazard, which I think was like Resident Evil 7. And that was the first title that was first person. And I wonder if that was a separate team, which is the same team that's working on Resident Evil Village, which is obviously Resident Evil 8, because it has that first person perspective. They are taking very different approaches. If you recall in 7, it did not deal necessarily with zombies per se. It didn't deal with any kind of witches or vampires or werewolves or anything like that.
It's more like Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of. Yeah.
Which again
is cool.
Is really cool. And that is yet another game that I did buy. I do own in my library. I have not gotten around to playing it. So like I have all these Resident Evil titles and I'm like sorely behind on all this stuff. Yeah, for some reason I've plopped over 350 hours into Cyberpunk 2077. I have no idea where the logic is in all that. But do you think that there are two different teams at Capcom that are working on this? Or do you think
it's
is it just one team that is oscillating between the two?
I don't think so. I think there's two different teams. I think they are remaking the games for the new generation that hasn't had the chance or maybe just missed it because the graphics were so poor as compared to today's standard that they want them to have the same experience. So I think one team is focusing on the remakes, the other team is focusing on the newer titles.
Another aspect I was thinking about with regards to this upcoming Resident Evil game is how scary it would be if you played it in virtual reality.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're going to do, yeah.
Because like PS5 does have support for their own version of the headset and everything else. I think that'd be intense.
Yeah. One thing I hope they get away from, I never really cared for this. It worked in the first Resident Evil and the second, which is all the stuff you have to read. You pick up, you read it. Of course, that helps to progress through the game, but this is 2021. And so I don't really need to pick up little objects and like, here's a ring that has an eyeball that I have to use on the third floor of the library and just to unlock it. Like, a lot of that stuff, I think, has to kind of just to go. Mainly sort of the scraps of paper and everything you have to read. Because at the end of the game, a lot of the majority of that stuff bears no weight on the rest of the game and progressing the story. If you're stuck, like, oh, here's the combination to a safe that you got to open. Like, okay, cool, thanks. But like, you can pick up magazines and newspaper clippings and journal entries and whatnot. And then, it tells a little spooky story, but I'm kind of that's a passe thing, I think, from Resident Evil today.
It's weird because I have two thoughts on that. One is that it's almost like that's just a part of the Resident Evil experience. And because I totally agree, like in terms of the manner at which you find these certain items and you pick it up and you see it come up on screen, it's really dated in terms of like how it's presented, but I almost like it because it's so the Resident Evil signature. When you're playing a game, it's like I forgive it instantly because it's like, yeah, it's Resident Evil. Like, this is exactly like what Resident Evil's about, And when it comes, like the second thought I had was how you have people who play the Resident Evil games. I've seen them on YouTube, like they are into like all of the lore and the backstories and stuff that like goes way beyond just playing the game. And apparently there's a lot of reading material and paraphernalia and stuff out there that explores more of the Resident Evil world and the Umbrella Corporation, so on and so forth. And I've seen these videos where like you have someone who is going through from memory, like all these different things that are happening and how these characters intertwine to each other through the different games and through the comic books and all this other stuff. And so I suspect there are probably a significant number of gamers out there who actually really dig that stuff. Like when they come across a piece of parchment and they read it, they're like, oh, like this ties into whatever from Resident Evil 5 or whatever it is. And so I think they continue to do fan service in that regard. There was something else that dropped. It's sad, but I feel like it's important to talk about, and that is that the Resident Evil Village actress Jeanette Mouse unfortunately passed away at age 39, way too soon. She had an 8-month battle with colon cancer, which sounds awful. And she played several characters apparently in Capcom's upcoming Resident Evil game, including one of the witch sisters that makes up the Daughters of the House of Dimitrescu. And it was also discovered that she suffered from Crohn's disease and had actually contracted COVID-19 last year. Details which were outlined by her fiance, Dusty Warren, in a GoFundMe campaign that was set up to help cover her medical expenses at the time. So apparently she got past that, but the colon cancer unfortunately progressed to a point where she passed away. So we definitely offer condolences to her fiance as well as her family as a result of that. And it's always heartbreaking in the gaming community when you hear about stuff like this. And voice actors are such an integral part of the gaming experience, especially like as gaming has matured and the hardware and technology has gotten more sophisticated to allow for better production values. And as we both know, going through games that have terrific voiceovers, it really does take the experience to a whole new level. And so definitely wanted to just make that known. And I think it's gonna have another level of significance for fans of the Resident Evil series as they play this game. And I know that both you and I, Steve, are going to be looking forward to hearing her performance in something like this that'll live in infamy for sure. Looking at the game as a whole, how excited are you to play the full game on a scale of 1 to 10?
10.
Real? Okay, he's up there. He said 10.
I don't have to think about it. No, I'm totally stoked. I mean, this is what I have been waiting for next gen, and this is everything. What the demo showed is everything I want it to be. Minus, of course, the weapons. We haven't seen anything with the weapons, but how the sound looked, how the sound looked, how the visuals were heard.
That reminds me of Ghostbusters when Ray, remember in the library scene, Ray Stantz is like, "Quiet, you smell something?"
Jeez. No, so I mean, the sound was great. Everything looked phenomenal. Like I want to play that game. For sure. If I don't get a next-gen system on my birthday, I'm definitely picking one up for Resident Evil 8.
So my follow-up question then is...
What's that, Rose?
If you're that jazzed for this particular Resident Evil title, why have you not played Resident Evil 7? Because it is first-person. Granted, the setting is different than this one here, but what is it about 8 that has really caught your attention?
When I played the demo for 8, it seemed like it was still with the zombies.
Are you talking about 7?
7.
Yeah.
I mean, I was shooting at zombies, and there were some other creatures down there that looked very reminiscent to the other Resident Evil games, and yeah, it looked different. It just wasn't enough to really jazz me.
Okay.
There's something about like the 1950s that I really like. There's all the models with these mystic vampires or whatever they are. I think is an awesome change of pace, and I mean there's just more to like about this than I saw in Resident Evil 7.
Right on. That's totally fair. And I understand because I still want to play Resident Evil 7 just to have that experience because I've seen nothing but good things about it. But there is something about the Resident Evil Village that also captures my attention. And I think it's very similar to what you just said, which is the time period that it's set in and the different types of supernatural creatures that you're combating, I think is I've always had a fascination with all of that. And so I think it's going to be a lot of fun to be able to explore what this iteration has to offer in terms of all that, as well as like some of the older characters that we've seen from previous Resident Evil games They're going to be making certain cameos and whatnot in this type of world that is Resident Evil. So I will be picking it up myself and hopefully actually play this one as opposed to the other ones, which, I mean, obviously I'm going to get to at some point in time. But I do think that this is going to be a game that will probably be pretty high on both of our lists as we go through 2021. It might be one of our favorite games of the year. We'll have to see how it goes, but kudos to Capcom for a really well done demo. It's been a long time, honestly, since I've played a demo that was that good. And most demos you play, you just kind of get an idea. You're like, okay, whatever. You don't really get like crazy excited for it. And this one, I think, really left an impression on both of us.
Which is kind of odd because it was so short.
Well, yeah, it was so like your playthrough was 34 minutes, which to me, like, that's a perfect amount of time for, I mean, remember, it's a demo. It's not a full game. It's designed to give you a taste. And I love how it was just enough to like, here's like a little teaser.
Right.
Now wait for the full game. Like, I think it would be a disservice almost if they would have had a demo that was longer. Like if they had an hour-long demo or something, it's not necessary. Like that demo served its purpose, and I think it's great. But that's just one man's opinion. That wraps up this episode of Joygasm. Make sure you tune in next week. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to check out patreon.com/Joygasm, which is spelled Joygasm, and consider becoming a monthly contributor. You'll get exclusive perks and early access to the show. Not to mention, it really helps us continue doing what we love to do. Also, you can follow us on social media and YouTube. Just do a search for Joygasm TV. Last but not least, search Joygasm TV on Twitch to see us stream our gaming adventures live every Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Central Time. Take care, everybody. We will see you next week.